Cohen said he might join. Gary is probably busy. Have we got all the bases covered, though? We've got bare metal, Docker, and Chris has just disappeared, and Chris is back. We've got cubes as well.
Oh, should be good, I think. By the way, I'm recording everything, including the chat.
Oh, okay.
So it should be good.
Right.
I will not read out my private key.
I'll try my best not to swear. I can't guarantee anything.
I need a second button for bleeping.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Gary.
Good evening.
Morning, mate.
Good evening.
So, is it just all the people that know what they're doing in here? Or is it something else?
Don't know about that, mate.
Get in
There's one guy who's submitted some questions, and we'll see about getting on in a minute. But because this is the first one, I just want to make sure everybody knows who everybody is. So we'll just run through. I'll just go through the names in the list that they're in the voice chat. You just give a 30 seconds on who you are, what you do, where you live, whatever. What your area of expertise is.
Okay,
Gary.
So, yep, I'm Gary, infra lead for Stake and Facilities. I run the node on their behalf, but I'm also running my own under the fatox.eth handle. I'm based in Munich along with the rest of the Stake and Facilities guys, and I like long walks on the beach.
Lovely. Seb Goldberg.
Hello, I'm Sebastian. I'm living in Tbilisi right now, in Georgia, between Russia and Turkey. And I like to run Docker setups. So I created this Docker Compose setup that everyone ends up using, or like a lot of people end up using. And I had all the fun with Alex. And it was a nice ride. So what else interests me? I also need ocean because I can see very far and nothing is in between and me.
Brilliant. Chris?
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. Long background in tech, as both an engineer and quite a lot of infrastructure and DevOps experience as well. Got into crypto a few years ago. I am pretty much the sole operator of GraphOps. We use a mix of bare metal and Kubernetes and love Docker and all that kind of stuff. Excited to be here.
Yeah, lots of questions are going to come your way, Chris, if you've got all that kind of hybrid stuff going on. Definitely. Where are you based, Chris, if you don't mind me asking? If you're okay answering. You're in the UK? Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Excellent. Okay, Mr. Payne, Alec.
Hey, so my name is Alex. I'm based in Romania. I'm pretty much... I don't know where to start. So I got into crypto early 2017. Stayed in for the tech, and now I'm trying to basically improve my knowledge overall. I'm the partner of Goldberg. We're both running Stake Squid together, and we're focused on Docker.
Very good. All right, so I'll do myself. My name's Jim. Ran an indexer on Mission Control. Decided to take it into mainnet. I now run my own little one-man operation called Wave 5, where I run an indexer on mainnet, soon on testnet as well, as soon as I can find the time to actually get it set up fully. I'm based in the UK, the Northwest, and my area of expertise in terms of the technical side of things is architecture, infrastructure around bare metal, hyper converged infrastructure, that sort of stuff. That's the sort of nerdy stuff I like to get involved in. And outside of this, I'm a big music person, a big enjoyer of going out hiking and that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's me. I see we haven't had our first question asker join the chat, so I'm just wondering if we can maybe see if he wants to join.
I wrote him already.
Okay, has he responded?
Not yet.
Maybe I have a question.
Go for it.
How much faster is Postgres when you use SSDs versus spinning drives?
Way faster.
Incomparable.
Oh,
Totally.
is it?
Since most of the interesting stuff like indexes should be in memory anyway, maybe it doesn't have that much of an impact in real life.
Does that not depend on essentially how you configure your Postgres instance? So you would need to load up the cache into memory quite aggressively if you wanted to steer away from your spinners. Chris, I know you have quite a lot of experience in this area because I've seen some of the interesting questions you've asked around Postgres.
Yeah, I think that it probably depends on the profile of query traffic that you're receiving. If the queries are mostly querying the kind of tip of the chain, then the subset of data that is actively being accessed is going to be quite small, and Postgres should do a good job of caching that in RAM and optimizing for that data set. But yeah, if you're talking about querying a kind of broader set of data that is touching storage of some kind, then yeah, storage IOPS really matters, and even going NVMe over SATA SSDs is a big jump, but from spinning magnetic drives to solid state is a huge difference.
So it sounds to me like it's going to be quite important, over time as we get a profile of where the types of data that people are asking for and how fresh it is, to know how frequently people are going really far back, right? In for example, Uniswap data, really churning through the old data. I'm imagining, and it's an assumption at this point in my head, that the majority of the effort and the need for utility is going to come from chain head data, right? Near real-time data.
Yeah, even the Uniswap data, when you look at those charts, they go not 5 years back. They go maybe, mostly probably a month back. People don't scale out too much.
Have any of you guys thought about gearing systems specifically for each module in the graph stack, let's say? Because something I've been looking into at the moment is non-volatile DIMMs. So basically, almost as fast as RAM, but non-volatile.
You mean Intel Optane?
Yeah, but you can get other generic ones from Micron and stuff where you can use them on AMD rigs. I'm looking into it at the moment for a use case for Solana, for example, but I think it could be really good for something like this as well, specifically on the node side.
Yeah, I watched a video of Linus Tech Tips. He had a $50K server setup with 3 sets of drives. The first was the stuff that goes into the RAM modules, as you said, and then it was a round of NVMEs, and then a round of SATA SSDs, and then a round of spinning drives or something like that. It was crazy.
Yeah, I think it was you could get about 128 gigs for, I think it was $500 or something, so the outlay might be quite a lot, but even if you compare it to something like NVMe, I'm sure it's going to be much faster, and the important thing is the non-volatility. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really good for the node.
Yeah.
Kind of following on from that, I was also thinking about, and I think a few people have been considering this, the possibility of having different Postgres databases on different iron, that you have really highly spec for latency in the database, more expensive queries, but getting them there faster, and then you'd have another database with other subgraphs potentially that, the data is going to be cheaper, but you're going to be guaranteeing less service, that sort of thing. Because I know that the node, is it the node or the agent? They're starting to architect it now so that you can do that sort of thing. You can have multiple databases, and you can have subgraphs only in certain databases, not just replication.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
right.
about doing that.
Yeah, if you look at some of the more recent releases of the Graph node, software, so that's not the agent or indexer service. It's kind of hidden in the release notes, I think, but there's early support for actually sharding subgraphs across independent Postgres instances. And that's done entirely at the Graph node application level. So these databases don't need to know about each other and can make different trade-offs.
Yeah, I have that on my to-do for my next test deployment. But that's something I've considered doing for tracing versus non-tracing nodes. But I think it might be something to consider whether a subgraph has tracing or not, because some of these, even the non-tracing ones, can be very heavy, like we saw in testnet.
I remember in one of the early mission control sessions, I think it was Brandon who mentioned the possibility of exploring alternate SQL distributions or databases. And I remember him mentioning memSQL in particular, where your entire data set exists in RAM, and obviously the database is optimized for RAM access. That's certainly not something I've looked into yet, but it would be great if Edge and Node can share some of the learnings that they've had and some of the research that they may have done into solutions like that.
That's a fair question, and I think actually, Chris, I would ask you to, unless you've already done it, there's a post on the forum right now where Martin has proposed a performance engineering workshop.
Yeah.
That will be pretty heavily led by Lutter, and Lutter is he's a god when it comes to Postgres. So if you have some specific, really technical questions around the architecture, he'll be the guy who knows the history and what they plan for the future. So post on there any specifics you have, and they can be added to the session.
Cool. Thanks, Jim. Will do. Need those Postgres magic incantations.
Yes. Just one last question that I want to ask everyone about Postgres before we have only a couple of questions here from one person. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer those questions because Alex is recording this session. So the person who asked them can always check it later on rather than joining the chat if they don't want to. So my question was the basic one. Is anyone doing any sort of Postgres level replication or redundancy at the moment with their mainnet deployment? If so, what's your experiences?
Yep.
That's the crickets I was expecting. I was also interested in hearing about high availability or replication myself.
This is something I'm doing. Fairly simple setup right now, where I have a master and an asynchronous replication to a read replica, and there's some command line option you can pass to Graph node to specify read replicas, and it will balance requests over them. And then there's active failover that you can configure. I think what I was doing before was using Zalando's Postgres operator inside Kubernetes, which automates a lot of Postgres failure detection and failover and things like that. I'm not doing that anymore because the Postgres workload is particularly storage IO intensive, so I'm not running that in Kubernetes. But it's not just for failover, but worth doing just for read scalability.
That's interesting. It seems like an entire area of voodoo technology that I'm a little bit intimidated by, to be honest. But I think the testnet is going to be a great sort of testing ground for all these types of things. My intention in the testnet is to not only have my production environment sort of pre-prod tested, but then also to try out Seb and Alex's Docker guide, and then I'm also keen to learn finally about cubes. Yeah. So we have some questions here from someone who is not in the chat, so I'm just going to throw them out there, and anybody who wants to answer them is welcome to do so. I know we've got a number of I can see there's some other indexer names I recognize here. If there's anybody here who is an indexer and wants to chime in and has value to add, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and add to the conversation. So the first question from Roki is related, I believe, to the testnet. So he's asking, is there an actual list of IPFS hashes specifically for the testnet? He's found some in various places, but they appear to be outdated.
As far as I know, you only have one subgraph that is on testnet right now, and it's the same one that's on mainnet. But I don't think there will be a list anytime soon. No.
Yeah, the hash for that subgraph is different on testnet, of course.
No, it's not. It's the same one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's literally the same one.
But yeah, I think probably the authoritative source for that is the network subgraph. You can query the network subgraph and the subgraphs entity. The one thing is, when we interact with subgraphs and the indexer software, we use those QM base 58 hashes, whereas I think what comes back from the subgraph...
it's bytes 32, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's somewhere, I don't know if it's open source. I would expect so, but in the mission control, the Graph team released a little CLI util to convert between bytes 32 and base 58. But it's probably something you can, do online, some online converter or whatever.
Yeah, I have a link pinned in one of my groups. I can grab it after the indexer stuff, and I can drop it in here. But the tool that the team made, I was never able to make it work. No, probably because it was like NPM based, and like I hate dependencies and all that kind of stuff.
Static links.
Oh, we all love NPM.
And it's sort of NPM a lot easier.
I've got an extension to that question, actually, from what you brought up there, Chris. So you can look at the network subgraph and see the list of all of the subgraph CIDs, right? The QM part. One of the things that... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I'm not sure, at least when I remember doing this myself, the subgraph, I don't think serves the QM hashes. It serves byte 32. You need to convert into the QM hashes to use them with the indexer software. But sorry, go ahead.
Got it. So it's bytes 32 in the subgraph. Something that often comes up is, you'll have somebody ask a question about how do we just, what's the canon for converting a CID, the QM hash, to a subgraph name. And to my knowledge, that doesn't exist, but it sounds to me like potentially the actual subgraph is the place to go for that information, right? So you would need to be able to take your CID, convert it into bytes 32, and then do some sort of query on the network subgraph in order to find the name of the subgraph, right?
Yeah, Stake Machines actually posted a screenshot of a query that can be used, and yeah, there's an original name field. I remember when I was prodding around the database to kind of refine my Grafana dashboards, I think I found a copy of the name in somewhere in the Graph node database, so it might be possible to resolve locally. But yeah, the network subgraph will work too.
Right. That's sort of like a really basic foundational thing that we definitely missed in our monitoring, for like our Grafana dashboards in the testnet. It's just a kind of an obvious thing that we need. We need it now. We need it we're going to need it as the new subgraphs come on board. We can't be indexing blindly and leaving the global rule open to just try and index everything that's there. We need to be selective about it, right?
Well, during the testnet, most of us memorize the damn things.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, let's move on to Roki's second question. How to deploy subgraphs the right way, starting from a small amount, by which I guess he means an allocation, and then increasing it after. Are there any restrictions, like one changing per epoch, not possible to change allocation size, or increase parallel allocations? That's a pretty generic question. Anyone want to tackle that one?
So you have absolutely no reason to start small and increase it after, because you'll be missing rewards. Rewards are basically distributed towards your active allocated stake. As for restrictions, yeah, you can only change the allocations once per epoch. You can increase the allocation size by increasing the number of parallel allocations, as I explained in the testnet channel.
In the same epoch, right?
Yeah, in the same epoch. You basically create a new parallel allocation with the amount that you want to have, and the agent will automatically open a new allocation in order to keep the number of parallel allocations that you specified.
Anyone else have anything to add to that? Roki, I see you've joined the chat. You're welcome to unmute and say hello if you'd like to, or if you have any follow-on questions. You can always interrupt me anyway if you're figuring out your mic. Thanks, Alex. Third question, POI, proof of indexing. How to check it step by step, each component. Is there any automation for that? So is there anyone here who's quite familiar with the POI script that Yanis provided that would like to talk about it? Or another solution?
I'm familiar with how to do it the wrong way.
Oh, have you got a story to tell?
Well, early on I was doing totally the wrong POI, so I'm crossing my fingers I don't get slashed. But I have the script now. I'm kind of just going through my docs right now to see if I can post any helpful stuff right now.
So is that your own script, or are you looking at the one that Janice provided for prior to, I think it was indexing software 094, something like that?
Yeah, I think he cleaned it up and put it into the GitHub, either the wiki or like an issue or something, and so I pulled it from there. So I'm going to look and see if I have something.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, I don't know, what the kind of intention is, Roki. So if you want to clarify that, feel free. But yeah, with, I can't remember, 094, 095 of indexer agent, there's protection rolled in. So the agent will not close an allocation with a 0 POI. It will just leave the allocation open. So yeah, that kind of risk of losing indexing rewards has been mitigated. But yeah, if you want to clarify what you want to do with the POI, then maybe we can help.
I'm wondering if it's just straight up having read through the indexer's channel and seeing some of the tragedies that are the OXO POIs that people have suffered in the past. Right. Or maybe the P2P incident, which was pretty high profile. I would say that as long as you are making sure that your software, your indexer agent and your services, or specifically your agent really, is running at version 094 or above, and it will be. If you're in the testnet, you can only run 010 as far as I know. as long as you're running greater than 094 or greater, then it's not possible for you to get caught by a POI bug. The agent will catch it and stop you from settling until you fix the problem. The problem often ends up being something with your ETH node, and that's the diagnosis for most people who have had POI issues.
Well, the issue could be not necessarily only that. So like it's a complicated matter in terms of like what can cause it. So for example, if the agent can't talk with your graph node, it can't grab the POI. If the graph node can't talk with the ETH node, it can't grab the POI. Or like it might have it, but like if you're missing the start of the epoch, you don't have it. That could be a number of issues that could lead to a 0x0 POI. It's more complicated. So TLDR, you kind of have to have your entire infrastructure to work perfectly in order to avoid it.
Okay, thanks, Alex. So one of the things I'm interested in around POI is I'm not entirely sure which blocks you're supposed to be checking when you run the POI script. So
it's the
Pat,
first.
I'm looking.
It's the first block of the current epoch that you're closing your allocation in.
So it's only one block that you're checking on.
Yeah, the first block of the current epoch.
Right. Okay, that's simple enough to remember.
And what
think I
type
was
of
checking.
that block is checked, actually? Like how does it detect that you did your work properly?
Yeah, I
guess
think so.
That's getting into the actual proof of indexing, code itself, I guess.
Yeah.
I've tried to read it. Do you remember very early on we were looking at ways to game it, Alex? Do you remember that? And I looked at the code and I was just like, no, no.
I think, don't quote me on this, but I think right now you can submit anything that is not a 0x0 POI and it will be accepted.
Yeah, but if someone notices that, and you can get slashed for providing the wrong.
Yeah, but I don't believe that functionality has been built into the agent yet to actually monitor those allocations those closed allocations and then raise disputes on chain.
Yeah, so this is the whole fisherman part, right? Which if you look on other networks like ETH2, it's the slasher, right, in the Prism client, and it's a pretty heavy piece of resource-wise, pretty heavy piece of software. So I imagine it'd kind of be interesting to be able to do that analysis now and see if anybody has been submitting junk POIs, because there's slashing. Well, are there slashing rewards for anyone to pick up on right now, or is it purely governed by Edge and Node right now? I'm not too sure. If you were to find one, would you be able to benefit from reporting it? Is what I'm trying to say.
I believe so. I think half of the slashed amount will go to the one that reported it, and the other half goes to someone else, but I can't really know what exactly.
Oh no.
I can't imagine there is. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think there is a kind of statute of limitations. Like after some period has passed, your POI is locked in and no one can dispute it, I think. So given
the
enough
dispute
time
window.
passing, don't worry, Pat.
But the dispute window was only for the query fees, wasn't it? That's something we need to ask. I don't know.
I think it may also include the fisherman piece.
One thing that I thought was interesting is can you submit a POI if your infrastructure is offline, right? Because you kind of need all these pieces to be online. So it just, I don't know. It's just if you're down or something goes wrong and then somebody else tries to close your allocation, then sort of what happens then?
No, allocations can only be closed with a POI by the indexer itself. But you can't, if you use the same address, like for example the operator wallet address, you can craft yourself a transaction with the valid POI, even if your infrastructure is offline, I think. But I wouldn't recommend it.
Well, you're only going to do that if it's, complete dire straits, right? If you had some kind of disaster that meant that you couldn't be online to settle your transactions. So in that sort of situation, it's kind of a valid use case, right? It's your last ditch attempt to make sure that you allocate, you settle correctly, and you get your payout, and your delegators get their payout.
Well, I'd like to be able to do things without, I'd like to call them from my own infrastructure than from my, indexer, right? I want to be able to craft all the transactions I need to do on my own and be able to submit those without relying on anything else.
Right. Right.
I mean, if you query your graph node instance for the POI, then you can manage all the transactions yourself. I mean, this is something that I looked into a little bit, and effectively, replacing Indexer agent with, my own software. I didn't land up going that way, and I forked Indexer agent and kind of gone down that path instead. But yeah, effectively, Indexer agent is, the transaction orchestrator, and there's nothing preventing you from taking that role on, in your own system or your own software.
Is there a use case there, Pat, that you would share with us that you're interested in sort of developing?
Yeah, I just want more control. I want a dashboard that lets me close and open and do things, and I want to craft the transactions, and I want to know exactly what's happening, and I want the hashes for all those, and, I don't know, just don't want to have to rely on the agent to manage everything for me.
Right, so would some of that potentially be addressed by writing some kind of interface to the CLI itself, or would you want it to be 100% independent of the agent?
Yeah, and totally independent. I mean, I plan on having this anyway, so it's just a work in progress, really.
Yeah, sounds interesting. Okay. We went off on a lovely tangent there. Let's have a look if we have any more questions. We have a question here from Steve from that query. Let's say, as an indexer, I'm staking 1 million GRT. Sum of stake by all delegators is 100,000 GRT. For fair distribution of reward, what should the delegation percentage? Should it be proportional to stake, which means the indexer 90% and delegators 10? Does it mean if delegator stake increases, indexer should decrease their reward and keep it proportional to stake, ideally? I think this is pretty much a hot topic right now, right?
I think the short answer to that question is yes. There's a very tiny math thing where if the stake were 900k from the indexer and 100k from the delegator, then it would be 90-10. But yeah, to maintain a consistent effective fee cut, then the protocol parameters should be updated to reflect the ratio of indexer stake to delegated stake.
And this is to try and keep a constant effective stake, right?
Effective cut, yeah.
Sorry, effective cut. Yeah, so I mean, this is a really hot topic right now, and I'm speaking privately with tons of people who really don't like the way it works today, or they like the way it works, but it's too complex for most people to understand. There is a proposal by Gavin from Figment on the forums, and I would really love it if all of you would go and make your opinions on this specific proposal and what it implies. It's all around moving away from what we have today, which is sort of presenting things as two fee cuts, a fee cut and an indexer reward cut, and moving to a system where you essentially just set your effective cut. There's all kinds of implications for this. Some of the things that I see that I really don't like is potentially that puts such focus on the essentially commission and take the focus away from the fact that this is more than just a, drop a node and charge commission in approved transactions. It's much more about, there's that element of it, but there's the staking element of it. But there's also the element of how well you perform as an indexer, serving queries. So I'm going to just find that in the chat, in the forum, and post a link. But if anyone else has got any interesting thoughts on this topic, I'd be really interested to hear them right now. Bumbleweed. I'm just looking for the post so I can post it in chat.
Someone posted it already.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let me ask a more direct question then to indexers. What's your experience been, especially folks who are more, have had a chance to, are operating on other networks? What's your opinion of the fee and the indexer reward cut mechanism today? What do you think about it? Do you think it works? Is it effective? Should it stay the way it is today, or should it change? I'm going to start picking people out in a minute if nobody starts giving me some feedback.
I mean, I agree that it's a little complicated, but I feel like the original plan and designs were well thought out for specific reasons that we may not fully understand yet. And I'm totally fine with just keeping it for now and giving it more time. I just don't think it's been enough time. There's so much education that needs to happen just for somebody to understand delegation. And you're just gonna have to learn that this is how fees and stuff are, work, and then eventually everyone will get it, and then it'll be fine. And I don't think we've reached a point where it's been long enough, so I would just kind of rather leave it and then get everyone educated, and then we'll talk again about if we want to change it.
Personally, I take the opposite position. I think that with the current setup, what people really care about, whether you're an indexer or a delegator, is, what am I charging for my service? And I feel with the current setup, there's this layer of indirection, because I need to figure out this parameter based on my stake versus delegated stake, in order to get my desired fee cut. And I feel like shortcutting that to make the protocol parameter be the effective cut just cuts out that indirection, and it feels far more intuitive for both indexers and delegators.
Yeah, I think both are fair points. And I'm right between the two of you guys. So we're only 2 months in, right? And so much has happened in the last 2 months, and what we're talking about are pretty fundamental changes to the protocol. I am a fan of simple, what's the word? Levers for the protocol, right? So, like Chris said there, just abstracting the sort of current complexity with the cuts away to the effective cut. I do like that, but I also feel like Pat says, there's, we're still very early, and we are not even at the point where we're all delivering business to DApp, right? So there's a long way to go, and the complexity and the dynamics between, what revenue we make with the fees and what revenue we make with the stake is still relatively unknown. So I'm definitely interested in having this discussion, but also being very conservative about how we, push any changes through. I just think it's important that we do discuss them now. So that, it doesn't come to a point where, for example, stake just continues to pool in one or two indexers, right? That's going to be a major problem. So we need to be talking about these things now, because part of the problem I see when it comes to the cuts is that there's a huge focus on the cuts themselves. There's a huge focus on APY, which I really have very strong opinions about. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
And that's driving stake towards the biggest operations at the moment. This is a completely different topic. I don't know if we want to go there right now. But yeah, I'm right between you, Chris, and Pat, your sort of take of where we are with cuts right now. The data shows it too, right? The data, just one more thing. The data shows it. If you look at Brandon's last presentation that he did for ETHEREUM, you know, there's a complete split between the indexers that are, you know, they're running a high cut and indexers that are running a low cut, and that's where the two pools of people lie right now. So the data even shows that there's a splitted opinion right now about how that cut works and what the dynamics are like in terms of the mechanism in the protocol.
Yeah, it's funny because I did the same kind of breakdown and came to the same conclusions as him like about 2 weeks ago, and decided that I should keep my high cut even though all the delegators were saying, lower your feed cut, you know, it's too high.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a delegator market right now, and that's fine. That's the way it's, you know, it's like that's where the way it is in a traditional delegated proof of stake network. The nominators or the delegators, whatever the network might be, they demand a commission rate that's reasonable. It's a bit more complex here. We've got an entire work token built on top of that. This is not a typical network, so we need to be open to different ideas. And I feel that pressure too, Pat. I'm right there with you.
I see the main problem with changing effective cuts, like as people keep piling in to delegate to one indexer, the effective fee that this indexer takes goes up, right? So you basically have to run a bot who constantly monitors your delegation ratio and adjust the fee parameter.
Yeah, it's something I posted in the forum in the very first days. So yeah, what you're saying is true. If you have, for example, you know that you have the parameter cooldown thingy where you can lock your parameters in. If you lock them in and someone, let's say you have 1 million delegated and 1 million your own stake, and you lock them in and someone comes in and delegates like 10 million to you, you suddenly take like, I don't know, if you initially had your parameters set of 20% or something like that, then you immediately take a lot more after the big delegation comes in, and you won't be able to change it to lower it to have a better effective cut at the end. And I think the whole cut system and rewards distribution system needs to be reworked for this to for the cooldown blocks to work. But that's a total different topic.
Like one effect of this, let's call it architecture, could be that like very popular indexers that attract a lot of delegations, they get more expensive, and the indexer can't do anything against it because he has this cooldown period set to whatever, 28 days to be nice. Then there would be some kind of like equilibrium effective cut that will be balanced by the protocol somehow because it influences the decision of the delegators.
Yeah. There's a couple of good points people have made in the chat as well. Nili, I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. A good point that I've seen communicated by a few people is around how this impacts, brand new indexing operations, and how potentially we have a current sort of threshold of 100,000 GRT in order to become an indexer. And if you look at the maths right now behind that, I haven't personally, but if you look at the maths behind that, and you also consider the delegators gravitate towards the guys who offer the greatest APYs or lowest cuts, then it's difficult for these indexers to become profitable. And then Juan from Protofire also makes a really good point, which I've heard many times, is that the current system is really good for building really flexible sort of pricing models and charging models. Honestly, so esoteric that it's difficult for us as indexers to even understand it at times, I find. I'll admit that openly. It's a very powerful system, so there are good reasons to have it in the first place. Does anyone else want to add anything to that conversation?
Yeah, there's the one thing I would add is I think that these issues of delegators chasing APY and all that kind of stuff. I think, well, obviously delegators are always going to be looking to maximize return. But I think once the network transitions from its state of bootstrapping into something that is seeing real use, and the majority of rewards start to come from actual query fees and like real world usage, I think that will, separate, some indexes from others. And, when query fees are really what is driving returns as opposed to indexing rewards, I think, we'll be in a different environment and one that is less problematic in this respect.
Yeah, I'm often quite optimistic about that as well. I just think we've got a long journey ahead of us before we get there, and we need to be cognizant of the fact that potentially that's where we end up, right? In a perfect world, that there's so much query business that we're choking for more indexers to come and help serve the network.
Hey guys, another thing I want to point out along this discussion is that I imagine in the next quarter, a big area of improvement is going to be in the indexer software, which we might add like another level of abstraction where you can build machine learning models on it, or build strategies like set a consistent APY and have a more advanced indexer agent be working behind the scenes to adjust rates to keep that consistent, or things along those lines. So maybe keep that in mind and like be brainstorming ideas there and ways to improve that software, and not necessarily always updating the protocol level parameters.
That's really interesting, Ford. I had a conversation with, I think it was Yaniv a while ago, about exactly this type of stuff and trying to understand where does that fit into the picture of the software. Do you see that sort of stuff as being enabled via the core software, or it being something that somebody raises a grant for and then finds the right people to implement, and then it's just a matter of having software that interacts with the existing command line interface? Or are you talking about real integration with the core product?
Well, there's a few teams that are looking to do more like research-based, like data science stuff, to figure out what kind of updates could be done to the indexer agent. But I imagine it's going to be a combination of the two things you mentioned. It's open source, so we can always have improvements on the core product. But the way that we've designed it, it uses GraphQL endpoints for everything, so it's really easy, relatively easy to integrate that with other products. So I imagine a lot of indexers or software developers in the space will build external tools that can interface with the indexer management API, and then be making changes separate from the agent.
Cool. All right. We've got 10 minutes left. I'm just having a quick look to see if there's any more questions. Lots of good conversation going on here, though.
If there aren't any more questions, I have a topic to propose, which is the Ethereum archive node problem that I think is, very relevant for all of us indexers.
Yeah, it's a good one. So current state of affairs, if you want to be running a trace API on current infrastructure, you need to have a Open Ethereum 301 node archive with traces on. You need a huge amount of space in order to serve today's blockchain. It's coming up on 7 terabytes, and that growth. Personally, I've got 14 terabytes dedicated to an Open Ethereum 301 node, even though it's extremely unstable. There's a lot of stuff coming up, like the Berlin hard fork for Ethereum, which is sort of potentially throws a spanner in the works. I'm not sure what we have in terms of initiatives around ETH nodes. Any grants that anyone has put in, has applied for or created around, getting TurboGeth up to speed on traces. A lot of people seem to sort of be hoping that that's the way things will go, that TurboGeth, they have it on their roadmap that they're going to get all the different trace filters and all the different features working. But at the moment, it doesn't meet quite the requirements that we have. It's not reliable enough. Has anybody here taken initiative on ETH node grants or sort of trying to champion the TurboGeth side of things? Anybody here looked into any of that? I wish Cohen was here. Is Cohen here?
Yep,
No.
he is.
Yeah.
Oh, Cohen, are you here? You got any
I've
interesting...
been working on something.
Oh, cool. Go ahead.
He's muted, I guess. Since the testnet, I've had a server spun up where we've been testing the new releases of TurboGeth, and he's been the primary engineer behind that, and I'm just kind of helping to fund the server and play around with it a bit. But I don't know, it's looking promising. Hopefully, a couple more PRs and we can get it working properly.
Did you get it to sync? And are you syncing with full trace support as well?
I think there was 1 or 2 things that we were still missing, but it is synced, yes.
I mean, not in terms of trace API support, but at least, so I played with TurboGeth a bit, and I managed to get it to sync fully without the trace endpoints enabled. But yeah, there's kind of an undocumented flag that you can pass, and then when it does, it's kind of ETL, sync stage. It undergoes these additional phases to denormalize the trace data and save it all, and it just consistently crashes for me. I haven't been able to get it to sync yet.
Yeah, I'm not exactly certain, but I will say that Cohen and I are very time limited. So if you like access to play with it, I'm more than happy to give that to you so that we can fully utilize it. Because right now it's just, sitting in a server room burning electricity.
Thanks, Pat.
I think this needs to become a two-way initiative, though, right, Chris? We need to get in some way, I mean, I'm not experienced with this sort of thing, but we need to engage the TurboGeth team, right?
Yeah.
To get their support on this and potentially put funding in the right place so that, they're being, they're compensated for their time working on that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is really something that I'd like to see funding support from, I guess, the Graph Foundation from, because to me, the current trace node situation feels like a systemic risk for Graph protocol. I mean, what we have, I think pretty much all the indexes are running, Open Ethereum 301, which is basically a ticking time bomb. So we need a solution to this.
Yeah, this is a difficult problem. I wish Cohen's mic was working, but unfortunately it's not.
Well, in the medium term, we can also patch Open Ethereum 3.1, right?
So patch 3.1 in order to enable tracing traces?
No, patch
No,
3.1
it has-
in order to like migrate to 3.2, like to upgrade to 3.2, which in
Yeah.
terms should support the EIP and trace and everything, and should theoretically be stable, but who knows? And
Okay.
like the best world and best case scenario, we should have TurboGeth working, because like it's a quarter of the disk size of Open Ethereum.
There is that's really important. Like the space situation, it's in remote areas not that easy to rent servers with so much disk space. Like
Mhm.
right now, Hetzner is very comfortable, but if you want to branch out, then it's just unnecessary cost actually.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go north
But
of
the
$2,000
support
at
gets
very
into
least.
3.1, and they're also adding all these Berlin features that are needed for the next hard fork, etc. also to this branch. So I think it's pretty usable right now. It just passed 7 terabytes. Like, yeah, I have two 3.84 terabyte disks in a RAID 0, and they like today they will be enough. Like day after tomorrow, probably not anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, so am I correct in saying then that, the likely path that indexes have is, eating the disk space requirements and hoping that OE 3.2 lands before the Berlin hard fork, which, then means we've obviously got stability, trace, API support, and EIP 1898 support. And then, TurboGeth would be a nice to have if we can make that happen. Is that right?
Absolutely.
It sounds like a midterm and then a long term. Two initiatives: a midterm and a long term initiative. Can't hear you, unfortunately, Cohen. I feel like this topic, the database stuff, the node stuff, is significant enough that we really need a breakout for all those who are interested in getting involved. And we're going to need specific people to take leadership on specific bits. I would suggest that, depending on who's got the expertise to do things like patching, you need to think about how much time that's going to take and how that might form a part of a grant. And even more importantly, so for the TurboGeth side of things, we need someone who's a bit more experienced on the development side of things in order to understand how to interface with the TurboGeth team on that and work with them on how much time it would take them to potentially implement what we need. So anybody who's interested in getting involved in that specific initiative, and when I say get involved, I mean active. I don't mean passively listening. You need to be part of this, actively part of this and contributing. Then please DM me straight after this. I'll set up another meeting so we can try and work out where we go forward with the node side of things, because I think this is extremely important. It's probably potentially one of the most important things we need to think about over the next few months. Totally unrelated to this office hours, I would say, but I think that's a good thing to split out from this, because it's a big topic and there's a lot to go over with the node side of things. All right, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you to the contributors and the domain experts for being on, and especially thank you to everyone who just dropped in and had something to add to the conversation. We'll be having the same office hours, same time next week, I believe. And I'll be glad to see all of you there again. So thanks everyone for joining. See you soon.
Thanks for leading, Jim.
Thanks, everyone.
You guys have fun.